Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and this is going to be a slightly different one. This should be quite fun. This is going to be a review of the ReaperCON 2016 Master Series Open. So I was recently done in ReaperCON last weekend, and they have a huge painting contest called the Master Series Open Painting Contest that happens every year. This year they had more than 500 entries. It was almost 550 entries. Which is crazy, and like that's such a big contest, and it's a really great event. They pull together pretty much all of the greatest and best miniature painters in the U.S. They bring a bunch of them there who judge at this contest. The artists make themselves available for feedback after the contest. They're there all weekend, so you can watch them work and ask questions about technique. ReaperCON was really fun, and I'm just thoroughly impressed. This is my first year there, and I can say for sure that I would like to go back in years to come and continue to compete and participate, etc. It was a great time. So what this video is going to be is I'm going to show you some of the miniatures. Everywhere I could, I tried to capture the artist. I have no right or ability to judge these. I just want to share them with you because I think they're inspirational and amazing, and highlight some of these artists' great work and point out the things that I find really great about them. So, settle in. This is going to be a long one, and there's plenty of pretty miniatures to look at. Okay, so first up we have this one. Now this wasn't actually in the contest. This was, you can also bring miniatures from previous years and set them up if they've, previously won things, and just have them there for display. I think this was Noelle. I apologize if it wasn't. I took this, I was just like so enchanted by this figure, I took it real quick and forgot to grab the name, but I think this was Noelle. But this is this winter sorceress. And what I absolutely love about this piece is, well so many things, really. But the movement that is implied here. As she's slightly off-center, set to the this sort of rear right corner, and you can see the snow behind her. And the interplay here of warm versus cold, where we have all the like leaf debris and such, and the brown, clearly late fall and dying leaves of the tree, versus where she's stepped and walked and is bringing this snow and cold with her as she moves and turns the ground to winter. The desaturated blue grays and such are also absolutely fantastic. I mean, obviously everything about this is pretty wonderful. And I love the use of the little tiny touches of orange leaves on her, which is so necessary. You don't even really think about how necessary it is until you kind of really notice them and stare at them, and you understand what those little tiny orangish brown gold leaves are doing to create the color balance of the whole piece. It's just a wonderful little tiny diorama scenery. So much great going on here. And as I said, the sort of implied movement as you see her moving through the piece, like you can feel her moving when you look at it. And the way it captures that winter coming to the scene is just fantastic. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so now let's move to some of this year's stuff. I thought this one was really fun, because obviously it's I've always been a fan of cool Empire characters, and this was Bryce. As you can see there, I won't try to pronounce Bryce's last name because I can't do that, but really great stuff on this one. And when you look at that banner, understand that all of that, even the edge of that, is freehand. This is that very well-known Empire banner with all the little dangly sort of tassels on the side, I guess. And just a fun use of a lot of different little elements in this. Obviously notable, this is all non-metallic metal, his gold and his steel work, which I thought was really well done. I love the bright colors, the combination of the red and the blues all throughout. Really keep the piece popping, and very expressive face with some very nice eyes, staring off there. Great little work-ins of, say, like he clearly wanted the sword to be more reflective than the armor. So we have the little hint of blue in there where it's reflecting the sky because it's more shiny than the sort of duller steel that is less reflective of the environment around it. So really super great. You know, so many little tiny details, little seals on the side of that sort of skull stack idol, whatever it is over on him. The tiny little freehand on the banner, and then obviously the beautiful on the little scroll. That's what I'm referring to there on the right side, and then obviously the absolutely beautiful freehand scroll work up top, which I really love. It's you know, it's simple but super clean and super effective, and I just love what it communicates. I also like there's some really good sort of leading lines here that the banner creates versus this guy. He's pointing his sword over to the right. She's pointing, or over to the model's right. She's pointing her sword to the model's left. And if you look at that, it's creating this wonderful little triangle that the figure is resting in between. So very fun little trick there to have the woman in the banner pointing that direction, as it does create this wonderful triangle that shows you right where the action is and keeps your eye moving the right direction. Very cool stuff, Bryce. All right, this is more of just a group shot because this is Juan. You can see his, again, last name there. I'm bad with pronouncing names, and I don't want to butcher people's names. But Juan did so many submissions here. Like, this is just mind-boggling, the amount of work here that Juan did. And clearly, these are all in quite large-scale figures. You know, these aren't 28 mil figures, any of these. So this guy is a machine. I was just super impressed. There's a lot of little things to like on many of these. Specifically, I want to point out the Barbarian King in the lower left and the Attila in the second row most right. I love the bases that he did there, the way he's integrating his actual display plinth into the piece itself, by having it become part of the sort of rocky terrain and using it to create this additional visual interest. Very cool stuff. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of great painting here. I mean, you can just feast your eyes upon any individual model and see some really great work. And I love that he submitted a Santa Claus, too. That's super fun. Just so much great stuff here. Okay, so this is Elizabeth Beckley, and I first saw the little chibi piece in front here at Crystal Brush way back at the beginning of the year. And I loved it then, and I still love it now. In fact, it might have shown up in my original review video there. I think, actually, her Scar bust up in the right is what ended up getting judged. You can submit as many as you want, but only one can win an award. So I think that's actually the one that got in, which, again, both of these are excellent examples of two different techniques. The chibi piece being, you know, a wonderful piece of chibi painting, and it has tremendously great atmosphere. But the OSL on it obviously being what stands out, the way it balances the light yellow light and warm light being projected by the candles, versus the cold light over on her left, and sort of the blue shading and shadows is really, really cool. The Scar bust, which I've seen around a lot because it really is a very cool bust. And it's obviously, if I understand right, it's one of the masters from War Machine. Admittedly, I don't know anything about War Machine Hordes. But the non-metallic metalwork on that silver, yes, all of that is NMM, and it's a really good NMM too, because it looks like it's reflecting the light above it, which is exactly what you're attempting to accomplish with NMM. Also really liked the hair in both of them. Elizabeth really captured the sheen and the reflection on the hair and sort of the different layers and colors in the hair very well in both of these pieces. I just found these unbelievably cool, and you know, it's funny because one is almost more of a diorama. It's got so much going on, whereas one is a bust, and by its nature very simple and straightforward. But both evoke a great atmosphere all themselves, which is a testament to Elizabeth's skill. All right, so this is David Diamondstone. We're going to actually see two of his. Now, this piece I first saw at Gen Con this year. where I think he took gold with it in that contest. This is a really, really good, really good piece. I think this is from Dark Age, I believe, but what I love about it is it's a very nice blend of warm and cold through desaturated orange and blue, like just the color palette he chose. He's got this very desaturated steel blue, right? Being like the body of the mount and the armor of the guy. And then at the same time, he's using the sort of like orange, red, rust color balanced out throughout. And there's a lot of little good touches here that are easy to miss. The very subtle dusty plating or dusty tones worked under every plate of the sort of cream color on the top of the monster. The tiny little bits of rust and dust down in like the gear works of this creature, like you can barely see it, but if you look under his claw, like where his steel claw meets the sort of blue steel joint, or where the actual pistons are up behind the guy, little tiny touches like that of weathering and dust that just sort of make this piece feel very, very alive and real. Not to mention the fact that obviously the blending and light catch effects on the blue steel are really, really good. And then finally, of course, if you look very carefully behind him, you can see a wonderful little freehand pattern that this guy has in his cloak. So it's really just rocking everything. My final thought on this one, we're going to see another one from David here in a minute, but my final thought on this one is I really love the base that he's got, how it kind of trails off into the display plinth. I really like how it just kind of creates this little slice of the environment, and like the bones, again, the bones being so essential to the success of this piece, because it takes some of that bright white and draws it down into the base and creates a nice little triangle between the back of the mount, the front of the mount, and the base. You can see that triangle there, wherein the miniature is sitting in the middle. It's super clever. Those bones are doing so much more work than you're consciously aware when you first look at this. Okay, so this is another piece from David, and wow, this thing is so cool. So this is a bust, and let me be very clear. There is no LED light underneath this guy. Okay, that glow from below, that red glow from hell, is all OSL that's just been painted on. And obviously it's a slightly different OSL because we don't see the source. Like the object is somewhere else. It's clearly down beneath this guy, but which is always tougher to pull off. That being said, this is a freaking home run, and David doesn't need me to say that. I hope he's incredibly proud of this piece, because everything from the rough, beaten, worn nature of the armor, like he still has excellent blends and light catches, but you can see the distress that the steel has undergone really well, to the wonderful, like, actual sort of cracks and cragginess and shading of the face, all the way down to this absolutely stunning red OSL. And I want to point out one thing about this OSL. I want you to look carefully at the model's throat. Okay? So are we all looking at his throat? All right. Look at the line that is being cast by his armor, preventing the light from lighting the throat. Do you see that horizontal line going across his throat where there is no more OSL, really? Or it's greatly muted, I should say. That's the hard shadow being cast by the armor underneath, preventing the light from coming up. Mind-blowing. To recognize that detail, I've said many times that miniature painting is really just a study of light and how light interacts with objects. And, just pure home run, as I said, on that. That little tiny detail, it's little touches like that make it feel like he did this by throwing an LED light underneath it, and it's not. By the way, when you look at this from like the top or a high angle, you don't see any of this red. It's so well placed and so perfectly underlit that if you're anything above the horizon line looking down, or as it were, you don't notice it. You've got to bend down to see this. It's crazy good. All right. So, why does everybody have such a hard last name? All right, this is Michelle Blastonbury. That's what I'm going to say. And Michelle, I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but I'm trying. I liked this guy so much, this big orc. I don't know if you can really see it, but his entire skin is actually done in a very subtle, like, freehand ink. Like, that is to say, he's got tattoos all over himself. I mean, you can kind of see it on his hand there, but his whole body is covered in them. In these little tiny, like, tribal ink tattoos. They look so realistic. And, you know, the glazing work and such to bring them into the skin tone, where it's clear they've been there for a while. Like, this guy's had his tattoos for years. He's a pirate. He's out on a ship. He's in the sun all the time. You know, it's sort of baked them off of being very vibrant. But it's really great. I like the color on this. I love the fact that we see into part of the ship where it's cut away down below, and everything's so dark down there because there is no light down in the hull of the ship, right? So everything is like really super desaturated toward the dark end of the spectrum. Okay. Other things I thought were absolutely great about this were, if you look at that anchor he's using as a weapon, that rust work, like that is a rust-bitten anchor, right? Just really great weathering work, and it's carried through into the boots and the other pieces of leather where you can see some distress there, and then obviously his big chain, his ball and chain or whatever that he's swinging around, also similarly aged. This was a really fun piece. The wood looks old and worn. I just really liked the little slice of life it created of this like orcish pirate, and from the skin tones to the tattoo work down to the desaturated hull, or I don't know what it's called, storage area, steerage, maybe that's it. I don't know ship terms, but it's cool. There you go. All right, this one, I'm so super jelly of Rhonda Bender, because Rhonda got her hands on this. This is from Bones 3. Anybody who knows me knows I love females, and I'm working on a giant army, and I really want to put this in my female giant army. She's actually big enough to sort of fit in. She's out of Bones 3. This is a Bones miniature. Rhonda did this paint job for, I believe, both the contest and for Reaper. And it's really great, and it's a testament that that if you take the time and care to work with a Bones fig and prep it up, you can get absolutely amazing work out of it. So, Rhonda is one of the judges and is obviously a fantastic painter. So again, I'm not, I have no right to judge anything Rhonda's done. I just want to again talk about what I love here, which is more or less everything. But specifically, if I had to pick some things, let's talk about the linen cloth and how well it is both highlighted and carrying forth its illusion of shadow, and the incredible freehand that's going on there. I love everything about that pattern. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody do such a strange... I really love it. It almost looks like a stained glass window pattern, so I'm specifically speaking about her tabard in the sort of in between her legs, and it carries up onto her stomach, and it's really just so good. The blue going, having that sort of light edge, and then getting down into the deeper blue in the sort of middle and darker part of it, whereas then the red is bounded by that yellow sort of light around it. It's a really enchanting pattern. It's so cool. And I just love the color choices in general. We've got this clearly frosty giant, or something of that nature, giantess. And so to make those blues really pop, she's using a bunch from the red and orange spectrum. This red, orange, yellow. She's using the hot to really balance the cold and make both just explode out of the piece. So, just color choices here are fantastic. One thing you can't really see, but it's something we're going to talk a lot more about, is the using paint to simulate cloth texture, and this cloak is an excellent example of that, as it looks like a sort of heavy wool. But you'll see some other examples of it, and I'll probably do some videos on it in the future. But she did a bunch of good texture work around this, and I absolutely love this. and I'm jealous, and I can't wait to get my hands on this giant Windbones 3 hits stores. Okay, so this is Matt DiPietro. These last names are going to kill me. All right, so this is Matt, and he did 3 different busts. I wanted to show these 2 first, because I liked both of them. They're both really, really good. And this bust on the left is actually super popular. There was like maybe 4 of them there. But this is one that I loved. And the reason I loved this was both the snow sitting on the top of the sort of furry thing around him, I thought looked very, very realistic. I thought the sort of stubble work on both the bust's chin and the top of his head was great. Captured like the widow's peak where his hair is receding. It's really, really good. The natural tones worked into the skin. So many great filters going on there of the wrinkles and the natural reds and purples and such in the face. But the one little tiny detail I want to point out is to look at the model, the bust's like left shoulder, where he's created this wonderful little subtle tartan pattern. Absolutely great. It's a very simple sort of pattern, but I mean it's not. It looks simple to the eye. It's actually unbelievably crazy complicated to create, and Matt nailed it. He even has it looking like cloth texture. Again, with his brushstrokes and the nature of how he's moving the colors, so it's just really great. And we're going to see another one from Matt that's actually the one that got the award, the one that neither of these, as good as they are the ones that the judges picked to actually put up for an award. This is I Am the Lion, and this thing is so stunning in person. Like, what I want to communicate to you is that lion's face doesn't really have any texture in it. I mean, that's all him putting that on by brushwork, and that hair, and that, the sort of, whatever you want to say, his mane, I guess. I stared at this thing forever. The way he has it coming out of the plinth, so unusually placed, the really look at the colors in that. Just the ochres and the gold blonde, the sort of golden blondes, and the oranges and the browns and even the blacks, and just the way he moves through the spectrum here and brings them all together so organically. The way he captures the white sort of muzzle with the whisker spots on the front of the lion's nose and muzzle. I was just enchanted by this thing, and of course it won gold, and obviously that's super well deserved. This thing was stunning. When this obviously they take good pictures of all the miniatures, so when they load up the 2016 pictures, hunt this thing out. It is it's so worth just really looking at in more detail. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay, so this was a fun one. This is On the Prowl. I did fail to get this person's name, and I apologize. I thought I had it in the photo, and then when I loaded it up, I didn't. But I really like the movement in this piece, and then again, the nice little setting on the plinth. Normally I say you don't want to waste space on a miniature. Like, this is quite a big display for a single miniature, but I actually find it does suit this piece. Because what's trying to be communicated here is this person's out hunting in this werewolf or whatever it is. Person's maybe the wrong term, but is out hunting in this natural wilderness, right? And so I love the use of all this empty sort of, I'll call it quote unquote negative space, i.e. not where the miniature is, creates that sense of wilderness. But they also then took the figure and put it toward the back right, which is effectively the back front. Of the plinth, the basing, to show that it's moving across. It creates, again, that sense of movement across the landscape. You sense where this creature has come from, and its pose implies it's moving forward, and it's going to leave the scene in just a moment. It's a great little, moment in time where the lines and the world it lives in and the movement of what it's doing are really well captured by something as simple as the figure placement and the amount of space that was chosen to be used here. So, great stuff. Okay, so now we have the first of Rex Grange's pieces that we're going to see here. Rex has a couple. I don't know if I actually have them in order. I think I might have accidentally split them up. But I really liked this one. I thought this one was super fun. This is North of the Wall, and a little piece of snow fell down on North, but that's what it's called. And man, this is so good. The little dog Archer up here on this rock, staring at this guy trapped down and frozen in the ice, or coming out of the ice. I honestly don't know. I thought, to me, he looks frozen and like he's caught there and dead, like this orc or whatever he is. So I'm gonna assume he's dead, and not a ghost coming back to kill this nice doggy. But I really liked this. The creation of so much going on in this piece in such a small space is really great. The ice effect, the snow, the way it built up is fantastic. The dog obviously has a wonderful different number of textures on him. I like how he made the rest of the dog's sort of clothing very dark, and very much like a like the Watcher on the Wall or whatever the name of the group in Game of Thrones is escaping me, but he made him wear that outfit more or less. And but at the same time, he then chose to make the dog this very bright, warm color. So when you look at this from a distance, what does your eye stop on? It stops on two things: the face in the ice, and the face of the dog. And the face of the dog is warmer and more attention grabbing than the face in the ice, because that's what we're looking at. We should see those two things. This piece is about the interplay of those two faces, and that's what we see, right? He's structured the colors and the layout of the piece such that our eyes are naturally drawn back and forth between those two faces. Just really, really great stuff. Yep, okay, we'll come back to Rex later. This was a fun one. This was from Aaron, Fuduric. Sorry, Aaron. Just a very simple little piece with a simple base, but I really liked it. I thought this was really exciting. Fun little, really fun OSL, and just an absolute fearlessness with color. Look at what this piece moves through. This crazy lightning this guy is summoning is this sort of white-green spectral glow color down into the blues and the teals, and then that gets into these deeper navies, straight into a purple, and then straight out into a red. And then if you look, by the way, the other side of his head, don't miss that the other side of his head is actually in that sort of gold and brown, same with the edge of his sword or whatever that's sticking out there on that side. So this is really just a piece without fear on color, and it's incredibly eye-grabbing. So I thought this was just neat. Absolutely wonderful as far as, moving through all these various colors and creating a piece that's clearly you want to talk about OSL. Now that's some OSL. All right. Yeah, this big, wonderful thing. Don't remember. Again, I was so enchanted by the dragon's wings, I forgot to get it. And it was one of the artists who's there, too. Crap. All right, I want to say it was Aaron Hartwell, but if I'm wrong and I'm misattributing this, I'm very sorry. But if I'm right, yay! I love this dragon. This was being actually kind of finished up the first couple days while she was there. I saw her working on it, and I love the Aurora effect in the wings. This dragon was called Aurora. This won the giant-sized special category. So there's a set of special awards for mouselings and giant-sized monsters, and this took first place in that one, which I really, gosh darn it, this is so good. I love the scales, the brightness of it, the frost. Again, look at the way the color is drawn toward the head of the miniature. This whole thing is blue, and it's easy to look at it and go, it's a blue dragon. But really look at where she's chosen to apply the white. Look at how much brighter the head and the back crest is than the rest of the miniature. It's not just the ambient light. She's taken it even up another step, not only to show the ambient light, but also to make sure that the viewer's attention is really snapped to the face of the dragon, right? And then our other points as we move around are those bright edges of the aurora traced in his wings, and the sort of aurora borealis up there caught in the dragon's wings. And then finally down to that bit of warmth that was put in there. So again, absolutely great. We could have used she could have just, I think those are pieces of the dragons don't share kit, which I as well use all the time and break up to as basic material. So thumbs up. I'm a big fan of that. But, you know, that could have all been just basically in the same cold gray and blues as the rest of the stone. But instead, we've got this pop of light underneath that's also underlighting some of the dragon and creating some more visual interest with that OSL that keeps our eye moving around, looking at the head, the wings, the fire. It creates these three visual points of interest, this triangle that has us... Alright, there we go. There's the rest of Rex's pieces. So, both of these are really great. On Thin Ice and Tuska Zulu. I saw the On Thin Ice one. I don't remember what it won. One of the three places at Crystal Brush for large, I believe, and large fantasy. It's obviously really good. What I love about that piece and that I wanted to point out, there's a lot to love. The fur and the leather work is all great. The skin work, the muzzle of him, like you can spend a long time looking at Rex's piece here and be enchanted by many different aspects of this. But obviously what I want to draw attention to is that eyeball in the middle of his belt buckle. Again, no part of this miniature said put an eyeball here, right? There's nothing that you know Rex was following when he created this. As far as I know, he just looked at that, thought it looked like an eye, and brought it to life. And that eye is stunning. It's so, like, it captures your eye. Haha. So I was really just like, it's the detail on it, how real and alive it looks like. That looks like that miniature is staring back at you. And it's one of those little details that just really grabs your attention when you look at it from a distance. So I love that, and I wanted to make sure I shared that with people. I loved it all the way back at Crystal Brush. I love it now. All right, so this was Michael Kleiman, I'm not sure. But this was, I really liked this, the Cost of Victory. So this is obviously Conan, or, you know, some Conan-like figure on his throne after a long bit of battles. What I wanted to point out about this one was two things that I really, really enjoyed. Let's take a look at the lighting on this piece. Where is the light falling? Like, really look at what's the brightest. It's in across the top of his, like, pecs, his shoulders, and his face. His face really having those, like, look at the model left side of his face. Look at how bright those highlights are, right? And how bright that light is on that crown. It's a wonderful example that what we want to draw the eye to is the face of the miniature. And so he created this light pattern that draws us up into the face of the miniature. And that's where he focused so many, you know, more highlights than anywhere else. Like, he could have highlighted the legs, like the Conan's thighs there, right? The same as he did Conan's top of his pecs. He could have done that. Like, this guy, but instead, he has him in this sort of soft, ambient, almost spotlight to create the mood of the sort of sadness at the end of all these battles, right? Absolutely, just such a little touch, but absolutely great. The other thing I wanted to point out here is oftentimes when I see people use blood, they just go nuts and start slapping crap everywhere. And I always talk about how much I hate that. This is such a wonderful use of blood and after effects and wounds. These, like, Conan's got 6 wounds on him, 7 wounds on him that I can count. And they're all very minimal, and each one looks like something he would survive and or have suffered. You know, the claws across the shoulder, the stab. I believe it looks like he took an arrow to the knee at some point, but maybe both. But he recovered, so good for him. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And then obviously the bruising effects and the blood effects and all that are also top notch. But just the way it's in balance, the way it creates the emotion of it is pretty fantastic. Okay, so this is a smaller one. This was Hannah Blackruby by Michael Kleiman again. I really liked this little thing. It was a small piece, but I just loved it. It was a nice, simple effect, and what I wanted to point out about it was the wonderful contrast of this bright white blue against the red. And what wonderful color choices this is. And it just, to me, really popped even from a distance. Like, it's simple. The base does not have a huge amount going on except for this you know, giant, I don't know how many that is, pentagram, octagram, hexagram, some kind of gram, candygram. But yeah, it's because of that brightness that he's then balanced out through the little dagger and the use of the upper ruffles on her dress. It keeps it in balance while still creating sort of the ambiance of the piece. I just thought it was really neat, and I liked the choice. Another really fun one here, I apologize I didn't get the artist on this one. It's another one where, like, I was kind of moving around this quickly, and there's a lot of people in this thing while I'm taking pictures. I didn't want to be in people's way forever. So I am sorry to the artist who did this. But I loved the graveyard scene here. What I wanted to point out was how wonderful the little purple choices are, and how well this all suits with that sort of nighttime graveyard theme. Just a lot of really great color choices being made that bring this into that sort of that twilight feeling. So I really liked all of that. The tombstones I thought were super fun, and I love the feeling of all the natural earth around there, and the little, like, worn grasses. Yeah, it was great. Very, very cool necromantic sort of darkness scene. Same with this, again, when I talk about color choice. I thought this was fun. What really stood out to me on this was obviously the bright colors and the wonderful, wonderful sort of blending and shading throughout. Great catches of light here. If you look at the sort of, I don't know what it is, like the sash that's working its way around her. If you look at all the little light catches that are so wonderfully placed throughout to create that visual interest and that movement. Same with her hair. And then obviously the sword itself up there having that wonderful little catch of light. And you can kind of see how it moves across there. Just really fun color choices. Again, this is, you know, it's not a big, huge, crazy piece. But it really caught my interest because of the way the color was placed, because of the points of light being called out, and just some really fascinating, fantastic placement of those hot spots around the miniature. All right, so this is Michael Proctor, who's obviously many people, if you follow miniature painting, you know Michael because he wins lots of awards and is an amazing painter. And this is a great example of that. What I want to point out here is this hippo does not have that texture on his skin. That is, that texture, that heavy, rough, leathery texture that you're looking at is Michael creating that with paint. That's my mind being blown. Absolutely wonderful, subtle flesh tones in the hippo's, like, mouth and belly, and the way that the pink of the interior of the mouth, the roughness of the conch shell, and then the other little splashes of color. Like, this is actually quite a bright piece, despite all of the gray. When you look at all the little hints of pink and yellow and tropical colors, he's kind of worked all throughout very carefully in there. And then finally, I just want to point out, like, yeah, I could stare at this skin all day. It's so good. But finally, I just want to point out how wonderful the basing and dirt and stuff like that is, where it's, you know, over the plinth and what it's creating there. The use of, like, little different sized rocks and the conch shells in there and stuff. It's really great. It all creates that beach sort of feeling, right? All right, so this is before Undeath. This is Jen. Oh boy, Wojcik. I'm sorry, Jen. I'm sure I'm doing that wrong. This one. All right, where do we begin? Wonderful, wonderful use of movement on the piece, because again, that thing is not placed anywhere near the center of that base. She's walked around, she's come up, she's walked up those stairs. Like, I can feel and see and sense where she's gone just by looking at where she is and what's available on there. The transparent cloth on the miniature, right, where you can see her skin tone coming through that silken dress. The freehand on the dress, and you can see how the freehand is opposed. So here's a very, very important thing I want to mention. The freehand seems to be very unified when you look at it at first blush, but I want you to really look at the freehand over her rump, over her butt, and you see how it's done in the darker tone comparatively. Now let's move down to the freehand. Watch as it goes down, and then look at it down at the base of the dress, and notice we've inverted the colors. And now it's the lighter color that's making up the freehand. The pattern is all coherent. But it's absolutely wonderful. And it's the effect here of that darker skin tone being used against and then showing through the dress is just great. And obviously, I love so many other little things about this. I could probably go for another 10 minutes on this, but I'll just very rapidly point out some other things I like. The use and the placement of sort of the trees and the bushes and the flowers. There's so much little visual interest around here of this scene of nature. It feels very real. But I want to point out the two fish circling each other in that sort of yin-yang pattern down in the koi pond. And it looks like she's looking down at the fish as they swim. Again, just brings the whole scene to life. I thought this one was fun. This is one of the scale 75, I think, miniatures. I thought this was cool. I just really loved it, and what I loved about it was the color choices. It's a great example of how you can really pop a miniature from a distance with color choice. So here we've got this bright crimson playing against this sort of teal, and for those who, again, follow me, you may know that I'm a big fan of that color combination, because it's so, it's electric. It just grabs your attention from a distance, and I saw this figure from quite a distance away. And so I really loved both the color choice and then the blending and stuff that's making it really pop and looking like the sort of the shoulder, I don't know what those are called, the little shoulder pieces. Look at her shoulders. You see how much they pop because of how high that highlight's been brought up along there. Gives the whole thing a very silken sheen, which I thought was very nice. All right, A Dishonest Day's Wage. Yeah, this is pretty great. I loved this pirate. What I wanted to point out with this pirate was, again, how wonderful the scene is. Because not only do we have a lot of great color choices and this bright pirate also being balanced against the sort of organic natural colors of his leathers and stuff like that. But what I really liked about him was how much we're communicating. He's got his hand on his arm there, and Steve here chose to make him wounded. Now I want to point out, look at, really follow that blood. He clearly got shot or stabbed at a cut in the arm or something, right? You can see the blood on his fingers on top where it's soaked through his hands and he's tried to staunch the bleeding. But then look down on his cuff. You can see a little more that's run over. Now look straight down onto the hilt of his sword. You can see the drop there, where it's come down and fallen onto the hilt of the sword. And then follow that all the way down again, and you can see where it's hit the ground. And what I love is he's dried out that blood on the ground, because as soon as that blood hit the ground in that amount, it would be drying out so quick, because it'd be on stone. It would get, the oxygenation. What would happen is it would just turn that brown crimson immediately. And so that would happen within probably 2 to 3 minutes of the blood hitting there. And so he's done that to show this guy's, bleeding fairly significantly, and is trying to staunch it up. The cost of being a pirate, I guess. Here There Be Dragons. So this is Noel Meyer, who I think did the very beginning piece, I think, but I might be wrong. But, oh man, I love this. This is so crazy clever. Okay. Let's really take a look at what's going on here. I want you to really look at this. I'm going to give you a minute to figure out what's going on with this miniature before I say anything. All right, go ahead. Okay, do you get it? It's the edge of a map. The edge of an old school 16th century map. Notice the teeny tiny ship about to sail off the flat edge of the world? And the water's pouring off the flat edge of the world down to the dragon, who's if you saw the old maps, they would always have these big monsters hanging off the edge of the world, right? Where the world was flat, and hanging off the edge of the world was this, would be a monster or something like that. The image that the lines, the hard lines up under the water, is the map. If you think about like looking at those little maps, they have these latitudinal lines on them, right? And then the green is a continent. Like that's a whole continent, the edge of like an actual landmass. And so we've got this itty bitty little ship about to sail over the edge of the world and meet face to face with the dragon, the monster that's waiting on the edge of the world, that's drinking up the ocean and ready to gobble up that ship. Oh man, this thing is so clever. The main figure, which is the dragon, isn't even on the plinth itself, like on the base. He's off to the side. Like this is it breaks the fourth wall. It plays with your expectations. It's so clever and creative. Oh man, I just love this thing. This was so it's so creative. It just blew my mind when I looked at it, and when it clicked and I got what was going on, I was like, holy crap. It blew me away. Okay. So this, what I want to point out is this was in the open category, and that miniature down there is a scratch build of, so on the left, that image of the O Sayumi, this geisha character from the Pathfinder game. It's Wayne Reynolds' art over on the left there. Absolutely stunning as always. And so this artist has made this figure from scratch, puttied it out from nothing, puttied it out, and then painted it and did a beautiful job and brought that image, that painting, to life. What? Like, wow. This is at a level that I really am, like, I can't imagine it. Like, this is a scratch-built miniature that looks so amazing. What I want to know is, when is this wonderful miniature going to get pressed into a mold and mass-produced so I can buy it? Because it's beautiful. And I would buy this model. I love it. Love it. All right. This one I absolutely loved because this is like it's Jewish children in World War II. You can see the Star of David on the sort of chest of the middle figure there. And this piece is so good. Look at the dirt on their feet. Look at how devoid of color this is, except for that Star of David. It's literally the thing your eye sees, because it's the only non-desaturated color in the whole thing. Their skin tones are gray. Their clothing is gray and ashen. The color has been drawn out of this scene, right? Because there is no happiness. There is no joy. This is the depth of human suffering. Just the worst of what humanity is capable of. And the emotion of the piece is just punches you in the face. I sat down, I saw her working on this, and I sat down and stared at it for like 5 minutes in front of her, and I was like, I apologize, I'm not trying to be a creeper or anything. I'm absolutely enchanted by this. The ash on the brick, the way that the color works is it looks bombed out, as these three dirty, bedraggled, crying, persecuted children make their way through a war-torn city trying to escape death. Wow. I don't know that there's much more to say. It's one of my favorite things I saw, just because if the point of art is to evoke emotion, is to evoke a response, if that is to be the point of art, then this is art. Plain and simple. Okay, so let's get to a little. Let's bring the mood back up here. This was a wonderful diorama, and what I love about this is it was made to sort of capture the feeling of the painting. So you see the little painting on the wall? That's a little version of what this piece is meant to evoke, of what then he has a picture of the full-size painting next to the diorama. So it's like it's a weird Inception situation. But I really liked this. I liked the color that he brought out here. Again, look at the spilled wine and the table. One of the things that that was pointed out was that table is doing a lot of work in this piece. Because if that table wasn't there, it would feel so empty, right? Like there'd be this big void. But the table, and then what we can do, the visual interest of that, knocking the wine bottle off, knocking the cup over, having the wine spill out on the floor and on the table, suddenly there's something going on, right? And the fact that the two figures draw attention in such a way, especially the female figure being this bright red, which is a wonderful little conversion of the one of the like Reaper, I don't know, Lady of the Night figure, I guess, townsfolk citizen. She's been changed to have a little knife in her hand instead of just be sitting there. Or maybe she does have the knife in that version. I don't remember. Anyways, it's really great stuff. I love the piece. I love them both signaling to each other. You know, like you come get it. No, you come here. You can really feel what's going on, and the fact that everything's sort of tipped over and askew. The rug being folded in on itself. Little things like that. Okay, so this was in the vehicle and ordnance category. I really liked this. I thought it was just a great scene of like look at everything going on, all the wonderful colors. I loved the little free end of the bird over there, or whatever it is that like sort of what do I want to call it? I don't know, the graffiti. I guess that sounds right. There's a lot of little graffiti and things in here. Look at the two bricks way over on the right side where it says like Alice was here, which is pretty cool. Alice, which I think is the name of this this miniature, and I honestly don't know. Like, I think this is an Infinity miniature, but I don't know it well enough to know. But just so great, all the junk, all the rust. It really creates this full scene, right? That this figure lives in, this world of detritus and garbage. I thought it was so good. I really just loved the ambiance of it. All right, so now we're coming down to the end, and we're coming down to the pieces that are truly, like, I don't know where to go with these. So this is a price must be paid. Look at this diorama. I don't know where to begin. The figure's at the pulled to the front of the piece because she has walked through the whole city and is drawing the rats out everywhere. And I want you to really look at all the rats because they are everywhere. And we're going to look at this from another angle, from a top down. This diorama is a great example of using what's necessary. This cityscape is created with 4 slight corners of buildings. And it's so good. The ground is also sloped to make sure that we can see the rats, to bring them up, to elevate them, so when I look front on, they didn't get lost behind her. So she's walked down this hill. Right? All of the little things about this are so freaking great. Like, just the composition of this. Let's look from the top. Okay? So Mr. Miller has outdone himself here. This is the buildings. Like, look at those buildings. That's how much of them is there. And they're perfectly smooth and cut. And completely realistic in what you're getting there. And look at the rats coming in from everywhere. Look at the popped sewer grate. They're up on the sort of roofs. They're in the gutters. They're coming out of the sewers, down every alley. Oh, when I saw this, I mean, it's just it blew my mind. And everybody was talking about this because it's such an amazing diorama. It's a great example of capturing a singular moment, and the fact that there's the 4 buildings ringing it, the fact that he chose to then create the elevation difference to raise the rats up so they remained visible. By the way, I didn't get a picture of it, but even the base, there's cutouts into the base of the sewers that have rats running up toward the surface. Like, yeah, this thing is, it's ridiculous. The leaf detritus caught in the gutters. Wow. Like, this is an A+ thing. This is something, like, he should just be proud of this for forever. This is absolutely great. Yeah, I can't say enough about this. And obviously it did very well. All right. So this is Yawns Salvage. And this was put together by Justin Mccoy, who I saw this for the first time back at Crystal Brush, where it took maybe gold, honestly, in its category. But it's great. Justin is a master of vehicles and weathering. If you've ever seen the vehicles he's done, they're all, I mean, like, they're just so real. Like, he is really, really, really good at making a thing just look like he took it out of the world and shot it with a shrink ray. Look at the wood in the base of the truck. Look at the dirt on the extra tire sitting in the truck bed. Look at the rust pattern, the streaking, the weathering, right? Again, but look even more. Look at the composition of it. He doesn't have the truck sitting dead center on the base, right? He has it sitting off to the side to sort of, and then he's got the arrow pointing the opposite direction. Look at the triangle, the leading lines he's created between the direction of the truck and the direction of the arrow, creating this visual movement from left to right across the piece. Okay? There's a million little touches in this, and that's what makes Justin's diorama and work on stuff like this so incredible. Because when you're really recreating something that's old and weathered and natural, I've talked so many times in previous videos about how it has to be organic, and how in nature, in nature things don't happen according to a pattern. There's lots of randomness to it. There's lots of sort of things just kind of are and are placed where they are, and it's happenstance. It's where the wind blew it, or where the rain happened to collect, or whatever. So, and he's done that so well here. And having these different, the way that the water and the rust and stuff has collected both extremely organically, but yet appropriately where it would gather on the piece. So it's this combination of, like, some rust is just going to happen because this just happens, but also it's been gathered in the right places, around the edges, down the back of the bumper where things have been scratched, where it's been touched a lot, you know, those kinds of things. So it's really good. I love this thing. As I said, I saw it. He had it on display. It didn't compete at Nova, so this is like the third time I've seen it in person, and it really makes my day every time when I see it. It's just fantastic. All right, so now we come down to the last two, and we're gonna spend a while on these, so tuck in, folks. So this is a piece by Jessica Rich, and this ended up winning one of the two, like, sort of Best in Show awards, I think, for Best Reaper model. It sounds right. Again, I'm doing some of this off memory, so I apologize if I get anything wrong. It won a very, very big award, and it deserved it. I'm going to say straight out, this may be my favorite miniature I've ever seen painted in my life. I know it sounds like high praise. It deserves it. I want you to really take a moment to get into this thing, okay? Like, your eye could luxuriate on this for a long time. I sat staring at this thing, no joke, for 20 minutes or a half hour. Just exploring it. Because there is so much going on. Let's start at the beginning, okay? Let's take a look at that background. What's framing her? What is that? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Look at the colors that are used in it. The hints of pinks, of yellows, of greens, of blues, all in this balance to create the color background for the rest of the piece, because we're going to see those same tones resonate and repeat as our eye moves down the base. What it is, you know, this natural scene with this vine holding this thing. It's almost, the background to it is almost more impressionistic than it is depicting any exact natural thing, but it doesn't matter. We get it. On a gut level, you get why it's there, right? It creates the otherworldliness of this piece. Now let's move forward to the miniature. Obviously, things like the skin tone and the hair and stuff like that, that's all fantastic. But I mean, that's run-of-the-mill for Jessica. She's always nailing stuff like that. Let's look at that dress. Okay, what I want you to really understand and internalize is that is complete freehand. That dress is just flat. And also it's been modified to be longer than it is. The dress normally doesn't go that far. So there's even like additional work here to make that dress longer. Normally the miniature is doesn't have that long flowy down the stairs cloak. So she created the extra cloak, right? And then it matches in perfectly with the rest. And then did this, I mean, this mind-blowing freehand on the rest of it. Look at that pattern. Like, get close to your screen and really look at it. It's just, I don't know where to go. Like, it's just stunning. The way that she's created the light and the movement on each individual little tiny band. And the way that the hotspots and stuff filter down the piece to the skull that's, again, freehand painted on there, in the sort of center lower part of the dress. Okay, so then let's move on, because I mean, like, I'm entranced by this piece. Then let's move to the stone. Okay, again, that stone, none of those cracks are in it. That's all paint. Every recess and crack and all of that, that's all paint. Okay? And I want you to really look at that stone. Really, really look. Don't just let your brain tell you what's on that stone. Look at it. Look at the turquoise and blue and red and brown tones in the stone. Look at the way they alternate around the cracks. Look at the way the center of each step has the brightest hotspot in it to create the movement up the step to where it's been worn away and to get your eye moving in the right direction. And these cold turquoise and warm red shadows play throughout. Okay? On each individual little stone. Beautiful. I talk all the time in videos about how stone needs to look, it needs to have more colors into it. Don't just do gray stone. You know, stone when it's in nature absorbs all sorts of colors. Now, I don't know where it got the turquoise or the red, and it doesn't matter because, again, this whole piece just feels so otherworldly. I mean, look at the way that the staircase is resting on these standing bones, right? So, it just creates the entire feel of the piece. Okay, let's move down now to the detritus on the base. I've taught, like you saw other times, how the use of the plinth was actually worked in there. Again, look at that carve out of the plinth. We've got a skull down in there. You can kind of see it. All the little things on the base, which of course are creating the realism of it, the entire environment that this piece exists in, but also reinforcing all the color choices, creating that sort of world that she's inhabiting of these desaturated, subtle teals and turquoise and pinks and yellows, right? Is the orange and yellow of the bricks. It's creating this little rainbow of swirl of color that surrounds her. And then she in the middle is this stark, bright, fully saturated sort of magenta color that just smacks you in the face. She is just a bright, vivid explosion in the middle of this sort of desaturated world. Really, really good. We had to zoom in a little more. I've got more pictures of it, so I'm just gonna kind of look at them. I've talked about most of what I want to talk about, but I just want to, there's things I didn't mention. Look at all the way the papers are scattered. Look at the leaf scatter. Look at everything. There you can see another angle. Looking back at you. I love the placement of the piece. Again, not centered at all. She's walked up the stairs. She's at the edge of the stairs. You can sense the movement where she's come from. another great angle that shows the really shows the sort of what's going on and where she's standing on the piece, and the brightness of that background, that sort of ring thing that's back there. All right, so now we come to one of the other best in shows that I think was for non-Reaper. Yeah. This is Marika Reimer, who has a site called Destroyer Minis, and Marika is well known for taking, first place best in show at Gen Con every year. She does the rainbow brush there and stuff like that. I've taken several classes with Marika, and she's a super cool person and a great teacher. And this is a wonderful piece. So again, this is all converted. That ship is converted out of I think she says it's in there. I think she says it's converted out of a soda pop can, which is ridiculous. Again, those planks in the wood, the texture in the wood, not real. That's paint. So a lot of it, not every, like some of the individual cracks are real, but the lines on the texture of the individual planks are paint. You look at the freehand work; it's so subtle and yet it's everywhere. Across her breastplate, down into the cloak itself. I love how she's posed here. The ship is being tossed and turned. Look at the angle of the piece, of how it's sitting. But she's stable. She's this weird, like she's got weird kraken crab feet underneath her robe. I don't know what she's supposed to be, but it's kind of disturbing. She seems like a very pretty, normal woman until you realize she's got weird, like, crab scorpion legs coming out under her dress, that's freaky. But I love how she remains stable on a very unstable scene, giving you the impression that she's fully in control, right? So as this kraken or whatever it is reaches up and drags this ship down, she's perfectly fine. Like this, she is in no danger, is what's being communicated to me. The use of OSL here is one of the things I really want to touch on. Just look at that OSL. Look at the warmth in the top left of the piece and the way it's reflecting down onto her head, onto her shoulder, onto the tentacles, in creating the color of the ship. And then look as the shadows and the color palette starts to fall into this cold, desaturated green, right? And we've got the placement of the bottle. Look at the guy trapped down in the water as the wave rushes up over him. Like, this guy is a split second away from going under. That's what we've captured in this moment. This wave rushing up to hit him and drag him down a last time. And he's reaching out to us off the base, right? Breaking that fourth wall of the base. Reaching to us to save him. And it's just not going to happen, buddy. You're done for, right? And notice the little green bottle there placed to just carry that sweep of that green all the way through. Okay. So, again, I've got some more pictures of this one, too. There we go. Absolutely stunning. Marika's work is always, genius, heartbreaking genius. And this is yet another example. So this is the last miniature that I have to show you. Jessica and Marika both did these. Like when you walked around, I saw both people. I saw people just stopping on these and staring at them, just entranced, because they were both fantastic. But there were so many breathtaking submissions. I mean, I hope what you see here from this video is. And by the way, I didn't even capture close to everything. Like I said, there were 500 and some submissions. More or less all the best miniature painters in the U.S. were there. All doing stunning work. If you had submitted one and I didn't happen to take a photo, it doesn't mean your work wasn't exceptional. It just meant that I had a limited amount of time to have photos and to take photos and tried to capture everything I could that caught my eye or that I thought was really cool. So this is everybody who was there. To all the miniature painters who participated, everybody did such amazing work. As Anne pointed out, this grows year over year. I can't wait to compete again next year, to participate, to be there. I've already got projects planned out for what I want to enter next year. Like that, it was that inspirational. To all of the artists and painters who submitted stuff, I just want to thank all of you for inspiring me personally, and I'm sure many other people with all of your amazing work. Everybody, it was so great to walk around and see everybody talking about these miniatures, getting excited about them, talking about their entries, sharing their work with everyone. It was a super great time. So thank you to all the Reaper staff who hosted this event. It was great. Thank you for everybody who taught seminars, for all the artists who made themselves available. I made this video kind of also as my personal thanks to everyone who was there. I don't know if any of you will watch it, but if you do, thank you all very much. And for you who watched all the way through this very long video, I hope it was interesting and gave you some inspiration for your own personal work. So thank you very, very much, everybody. There you go, one final shot.